All right. So let me just begin by thanking Cherian for agreeing to come on to this session, because this means a lot, not just to me, but to a whole lot of other people who are here, eager to learn from the experiences of other people who have been in this journey for quite some time. So Cherian, little bit about Cherian. It's hard to tell a little bit about Cherian because given the broad breadth of the experience that he comes with. He has over 40 years of leadership experience. Of that, for the past 11 years, he's been a business mentor, leadership and executive coach, holistic personal coach, OD and strategic leadership facilitator, panel member, speaker, writer, and he's also keen and passionate about music. That's something that I've got to know when I started interacting more with him. Um, so he's a managing partner in his firm, CNC Transcend Management Services. This firm has been recognized purely on the merit among the top 10 admired outsourcing firms and top 10 most recommended management and strategic consultants. In addition to that, he comes with about 30 years of corporate experience in leadership roles like director and executive director with large conglomerates and multinational organizations like Modi Xerox, and Bharti Airtel, and so on and so forth. So quite a few of them, the amount of experience that he carries, the amount of knowledge that he carries, I'm sure this is going to be a fantastic session for all of us. He's also passionate about sharing his knowledge, so he kind of talks about that in the form of storytelling, using articles and hundreds of posts that are there around his learnings. So Cherian, thank you very much for coming on board once again. Um
Thank you for the intro.
Great.
Yeah.
So today's session, we're going to. The reason why I've given all this experience is anything and everything under the sun. If we start talking, he would be able to add value to it. So, given the fact that we just have an hour's time, let's try to focus on some of the things that bother the coaches a lot. Things like personal branding. How do we try to brand ourselves? And pricing. How do we price our services so that they are apt, they're not either underpriced or overpriced. So let's try to kind of learn more on these topics. So if whatever you might have in terms of questions and everything, feel free to chip in and then ask those questions. And let's get started. So Cherian, briefly walk us through with your career journey.
So I'm an engineer, and it's interesting that this session is being done with Aditya, who's a chartered accountant. So we have an engineer and a chartered accountant talking about coaching. So that's quite interesting. But I think because we have an engineer and chartered accountant, we're going to be talking more about the business of coaching, not about the process of coaching.
Yeah.
Right? So not about the approach of coaching, but about how to look at coaching as a business. So my journey was after engineering, I moved into sales. I was 3 years with Crompton Greaves. And then I had a very long stint with a company called Modi Xerox, starting off as an area sales manager, branch manager, marketing manager, general manager, director, executive director. So 16 years in that organization. That's where I met my business partner, who's also here on the call, based in Delhi. Uh, so 16 years in Modi Xerox was mostly into sales, marketing, P&L, business operations. A lot of focus on this. I'm basically a business guy. I'm not an HR guy. Right? Then I moved into the telecom domain as CEO with the Airtel broadband when they launched it about 20 years back. And then I was in Reliance for about 5 years as a senior vice president. My last stint was with a US based recruitment firm called Manpower, which was into recruitment. So broadly, my corporate career was in 5 organizations, all 5 very different organizations, different industries, different kinds of roles. And I think that is what I think is the breadth of the experience. It's not been confined to one company, one industry, one role, but multiple roles, multiple locations, multiple kinds of challenges. Some are at the startup stage, some are at the mature stage. And I think, in the year 2010, Chari and myself were discussing in terms of, yeah, we've been in corporate for too long. Now, I'd been around for almost 30 years. He'd been around for almost 30 years. Right? We said, we've got gray hair, we've got no hair. So let's use it wisely, right? Who are the guys who can benefit from that gray hair and no hair, right? Is it a liability or is it an asset? And we felt it's an asset, right? Because that 30, 60 years of experience is a lot of experience, right? So we decided to take the plunge and become entrepreneurs, give up the comforts of a corporate role, give up the comforts of a corner office, all the perks of a corporate role, and say, no, we are now going to start on our own, right? And that's how we started off 11 years ago, exactly April 2010. And at that point of time, I think since I see many of the people in the group have just recently gotten into coaching or are getting into coaching. At that point of time, I think the biggest question in our mind is in terms of who should be our target segment? Who are the guys who can benefit most from what we offer? Right. So we had the choice of going back to large corporates because all our experience was in large corporates. But we said, look, if we go back to large corporates, why would they want to work with us? Right. We'll be seen as consultants, or we'll be seen as somebody who's going to come and poke holes in their way of working. Much rather than that, let's focus on one segment which is totally uncovered, unrepresented. And that's how we chose the SME segment, the entrepreneur segment. We said, let's work with the SME segment, the family businesses, the startup segment, because these are the guys who really need professional help. They need the experience that we guys bring, the business experience, the business planning experience, the sales and marketing experience, the operations experience. So that's how we decided to position ourselves as business mentors. We said we are business mentors. So we come with 30 plus 30 years of experience. My experience was sales, marketing, operations. Chari's experience was finance, commercial, etc. So we said we will go and add value to a segment which is currently struggling to figure out the way on their own. So I think to a large extent, I would say that as a startup entrepreneur, leaving a corporate journey is not easy. So we're so used to managing large teams. We're so used to having all the perks. We're so used to getting the work done for us. And suddenly you're sitting on the dining table and trying to reinvent yourself. Your previous titles don't matter, right? You could have been a CEO, you could have been an executive director, it doesn't matter. Who are you today? Right? So we realized that we have to sort of reinvent ourselves. We have to recreate a brand for ourselves. And the only way we could do that was through the kind of work and value that we could add to the clients. Right? So our first few clients were mostly SMEs. We started working with the family businesses, and they were looking for help in terms of can you help us scale up our business? Can you help us professionalize our business? Right? We have reached this far, but we really don't know how to get to the next level of growth. We don't know how to scale up to the next level. We don't know how to get funding and stuff like that. So we realized that as we started working as business mentors, we were able to add a lot of value. Many of the companies were able to actually double their turnover in a span of 2 years, which they were not able to do in the previous 10 years. Right? So within the first year, we sort of figured out that what we are doing is adding value. It is measurable, and the clients are extremely happy with what we do. So I think that was one learning because we were new into this game. Both Chari and myself have never been entrepreneurs ourselves. We've been corporate guys all through, right? So to start off as an entrepreneur, it's not easy. It requires a lot of determination and focus. So we started off that way, and I think went on for the second year as well. He was getting his clients in Delhi. I was getting my clients in Bangalore, and we were handling them independently, sometimes jointly. And as I started putting the system, structures, processes all in place for the clients, business planning, helping them with their growth, I was largely working with the leadership team of those organizations, the founder or the co-owner or the co-founders and the leadership team, right? And we realized that they are the bottleneck. Right? We can fix the business problems, but the leadership was the bottleneck. And that is how we got into coaching. Actually, I think we are actually accidental coaches. We did not set out while we were in corporate saying that we are going to get into coaching. That was never part of our plan itself. After we got into mentoring, we realized that there was a huge need and void for leadership development in those organizations, and one-to-one kind of a coaching engagement could possibly add value, right? And so that's how we started our coaching journey in the year 2011. So now I've been a coach for the last 10 years, since 2011, right? But like I said, we are accidental coaches. We're not HR professionals. We had not decided beforehand that I'm going to get all the certifications while I'm still working, right? Moment I stop working, I'm all set to start off as a coach. I've got so many hours of coaching with me. That was never part of our plan, right? So that's one thing we realized in our journey, is that sometimes you just go with the flow. Okay? Sometimes you just create the flow as you go along. You keep evolving as you go along.
Yep.
And so with one of my first clients, I was working with them. I was helping them on the business side, and I'd already started my coaching certification journey at that point of time. So I was telling this client about this. So he asked me, how does coaching work? I said, yeah, coaching is very, very focused on the individual. It's focused on individual development. It's focused on getting your leaders to the next level of competency, right? Whereas what I'm doing in mentoring is focusing more on the business side,
Yes.
right? Sales, marketing, operations, discipline, process, structure, organization structuring. So I said, look, on one side, we're doing this. On the other side, maybe if we try coaching for a few of your high potential leaders, it could be a good option. So that's how I started my coaching journey. That's how I started my coaching journey 2011. Again, it happened accidentally. The client who I was mentoring chose 4 of their leaders for coaching. So that was the first time I was getting to coaching, and I had no idea how to price myself. By then we had figured out how to price ourselves for mentoring, because it was a monthly engagement. It was a monthly retainer kind of a scheme, whereas coaching was something new. We had to figure out. So I just quoted a price, and he said, okay, fine, let's try it out. So we tried it out, and I coached first 2 of their leaders, and I coached 2 more of their leaders. And then they were very happy. Then I coached the joint MD of that company later on. So then we realized that, in the SME sector alone, we can offer business mentoring on one side, and we can offer leadership and executive coaching on the other side. It need not be either or, it can be both. Right? Some clients may want only mentoring, some clients may want only coaching, some clients may possibly benefit from both. So I think as entrepreneurs, we realize that we have to keep evolving every year. What worked in the first year would not work in the third year. What worked in the third year would not work in the fifth year. We have to constantly keep reinventing ourselves, looking at what are the opportunities in the marketplace. And that is where I think it is important that we had to get out of our corporate mindset. The first few clients signed us up because of our corporate background. Oh, you've been a very senior leader, right? Maybe you can add value. But I think after the first 1 year, right, or after the second year, people don't really care about your corporate background.
True.
They're asking, who are the clients you worked with, right? What are the kind of benefits that they have got? How are they benefited, right? And stuff like that. So we realized that we had to now quickly get out of our corporate boots and get into our entrepreneur boots and create a brand for ourselves as entrepreneurs. I think that was important. So the good thing is, because we were actually able to make a difference in mentoring, we were actually able to make a difference in coaching. We got a lot of client feedbacks, a lot of positive client testimonials, a lot of client references, which came from the first set of clients that we worked with, right? So that became the starting point. That became the starting point of establishing ourselves as mentors and coaches. Not what we said we do, but what our clients said we did. So I think to a large extent, when we come from the corporate, we tend to talk a lot. We do this, we can do this, we can do that. We promise a lot. Right? But to us, what really mattered is not what we promised, but what we delivered. And what value the clients got from that delivery. Were they willing to refer us to other clients? Were they willing to vouch for the fact that we made a huge difference to them? So I think that's how the journey evolved for year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. We largely stuck on with the entrepreneur segment, family business segment. As we got to year 5, Chari and myself were just chatting up saying that now we've had a good journey so far for the first 5 years. What can we do differently? Right?
Hmm.
And then we said, look, we've been coaching now for so many years, right? We're coaching entrepreneurs, we're coaching family business owners, we're coaching women entrepreneurs, we're coaching so many other leaders. Why can't we also offer our service to large corporates, right? For the first 5 years, corporates are not even part of our target segment.
Hmm.
But for the second 5 years, we said that now that we've established ourselves as coaches, I can very well go and coach a senior leader in a large multinational or a large Indian corporate or anybody. Right? Because one, we have been senior leaders ourselves, so we understand what it takes. We understand what are the challenges and pains that a senior leader goes through. So when we are coaching them, we can sort of relate to the pain areas that they go through. They could be in operations, they could be in finance, they could be in HR, whatever functional role that they're heading as CXOs. So from year 5 onwards, we again reinvented ourselves and said the SME segment would be one segment that we focus on. Corporates would be the other segment we focus on for coaching. Whereas the SME segment would be for mentoring and for coaching.
Hmm. Interesting.
Along the way, I also got some requirements from some foreign banks and things like that, saying that can you do some workshops on strategic leadership, right? Because having been a senior leader, so I did a couple of workshops on strategic leadership, which again was not really part of my initial offerings plan.
Hmm.
So we evolved as mentors, coaches, occasionally doing an one-off facilitation program for a group of senior leaders, kind of stuff, right?
Hmm.
But in order of priority, it is always coaching, mentoring, or mentoring coaching as number one and number two services.
Hmm.
Leadership programs once in a while, if we felt it was good and the audience was good, the target was good, and it was fine. So that's broadly been the journey. We just finished 11 years, about 10 days ago.
Wow.
I think an extremely satisfying journey, because each year has been a year of growth. We've been learning, we've been adding more and more clients to our kitty. References have been coming from one client, referring to another client, referring to another client. And I think the good thing I must tell you, all of you, is that Chari and myself, 11 years ago, we decided we are starting as entrepreneurs. We will have no office, we will have no team. And I must say, 11 years later, we still have no office, we have no team.
Wow.
Because we said we are the ones who are going to be working with the client. I'm not going to send some junior 25-year-old guy to go and work with the client.
Hmm.
Right? Clients are hiring us for our experience, right? So we will take on as many clients as we have the bandwidth and capacity to handle. Surely we can't scale up beyond a point, but we were okay with that. We are not running after scale. We are running after value. How can we add value to the clients that we work with? If we work with 7, 8, 10 clients at a time in a year, so be it. Right? But make a difference to those 10 clients. Because those 10 clients will give you another 10 clients going forward. And that's how the journey has been so far. So like I said, accidental coach, right? But through the journey of coaching, it's been so interesting because right from very senior leaders in, top 4 consulting companies to large Indian firms to mid-sized firms to entrepreneur firms to women leaders to solo entrepreneurs, I realized that once you're a good coach, you can coach anybody.
Hmm.
You can coach anybody. You might decide that I prefer to work with senior leaders. That doesn't mean you can't coach a junior leader. Right? So that is one thing I realized, and I think that's one of the points for discussion also today, is that, how do you create your personal brand and how do you choose your niche? I think to me, those are two very important success factors. How do you choose your niche?
Yeah.
So I'm open to any questions at this point of time on what I shared so far, and then we can I can continue talking. That's not a problem. But I'd much rather respond to some of the questions that you all may have in your mind based on what I've shared so far.
Hi CK, this is Amit here.
Yeah, Amit.
2 questions actually, very enlightening talk by you. I think given your background, and I can very much resonate with that. One is, I just wanted to, which a question which I'm grappling with, that when a person starts out as a coach or a mentor or a trainer or whatever you call it, does it really help to have another partner with you, or is it better to go solo or have a team, maybe have one or two more people along with you? And second is at which point in your career, which point in your coaching career, did you feel that there was some kind of a need for a formal certification in coaching, and which was the one that you actually went in for?
Yeah, I think looking back when I started my corporate journey, I think if I did not have a business partner, I think it would have been a much more lonely journey. It would have been a much more lonely journey. So having Chari in Delhi, because he came from a finance and commercial background, right? Uh, every He was based in Delhi, I was based in Bangalore. Every week we would do a Skype call. 10 years back, there was no Zoom and all that. We used to just do a Skype call. Actually, we started virtual working 11 years ago. I used to be sitting on my dining table. I think he used to be sitting in his bedroom, and we used to be figuring out our strategies on Skype, right? And we realized that having a sounding board uh, was extremely useful because he was going through his own experiences in Delhi. I was going through my own experience in Bangalore. His clients were different. My clients were different. So the constant exchange of views, right, I think helped us a lot in devising. So what do you think we should do differently? How can we do differently? Which segment should we focus on more, right? If I were to do it on my own, maybe I would have managed. But I feel much more empowered when I had a business partner. So to answer that first question of yours, I think it helps. If not a business partner, at least have somebody as a sounding board, right? Because a business partner is somebody that you trust and you know for a long time. I've known Chari since 1984, I think, right, or nine before that. So I've known him for a very, very long time. So it's a long relationship. So you can't just partner with anybody, right? Partnership is based on trust and comfort level and stuff like that. Coming to the second question, I think I started off as a business mentor. That time I did not need any certification because I had gray hair, I had no hair. So that is good enough certification for being a mentor, right? But for being a coach, I realized that coaching is a different ball game, right? There are finer nuances of coaching, right? Although I'd been a corporate leader, I had a natural mentoring and coaching style. That's how I used to work with my leaders. But I realized that if I have to be a professional coach, I have to go through some kind of a training and a certification, right? So we in 2011 we went with a company called Results Coaching, which is a neuro leadership group, and we signed up with them and did the first round of coaching certification with them. I think that set the ball rolling because there was a structure, there was a lot of peer coaching that was going on, there was a certification process, there was a methodology. So when I started off with my first client, where I told you I coach 4 people, right? I actually used that methodology with my first client. If I had not gone through that coaching certification, I would not have had that methodology. I would have done it my way. But I think going through that coaching certification gave that structure. What are the coaching competencies you need to focus on? What are the kind of coaching questions that you go about it? So I think a certification definitely helps in coaching. Not required in mentoring, but definitely required in coaching. Yep. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll carry on talking about.
Yes, one question from my side, if that's okay.
Yeah, please, Jasbir.
Okay. So first of all, congratulations. 11 years is a big time. So congratulations to both of you all. And I totally agree that a business partner, you feel empowered. But how do you choose a business partner? I've been struggling with this for a few years now. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been through a corporate journey of 18 years. And when I started as an entrepreneur, who is the right fit? How do you build that trust? How does it happen? Because more than almost a decade, and I'm not sure who to collaborate with or who to go ahead with. So what are your thoughts on that?
See, I don't, in my case also, I think our partnership also just happened by accident, right? Because I think Chari had already got into doing something on his own a year before I started. And then when I was thinking about leaving corporate, we were just chatting up and he said, yeah, let's do something together, right? And that's how the discussion started. And then informally, we sort of evolved. So sometimes I don't think these things can be planned, right? Along your journey, you will come across people who you think that you connect with well, you're working on a common cause, right? Or either you bring similar skills or you bring complementary skills, right? And those complementary skills, like in my case, I'll give Chari and myself. He's more a finance and commercial person based in Delhi. Mine is more business and HR and sales. So we felt we bring a wide range of services that we can offer between the two of us. Plus, we cover 2 different locations. So that was our consideration for our partnership, right? And it survived 11 years, right? The fact is, you will come across the right moment at the right time in your journey where you'll meet somebody where you believe, yeah, I think this is the kind of person I'd like to have as a business partner. If you don't get a business partner, get a sounding board or get a mentor. Doesn't matter. Even a mentor could be a good choice, because that mentor could be a sounding board saying that, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Somebody who's going to challenge you, somebody is going to push you along as an entrepreneur. Let's face it, yeah, being a solo entrepreneur is a lonely journey. It's a very, very lonely journey, right? You need somebody else, either a network like this, or you need a mentor who is always there for you. You can bounce off stuff with. That person may not necessarily be a formal business partner. You can be a sole proprietorship and run a successful business. There's no problem. But still have a mentor. That's all I would say.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Just to add on what Jasbir Cherian was saying, your chemistries have got to match, and you can't recruit a partner. Okay, so you got to find somebody who is in line, sync with your thoughts and both her thoughts. Like, we are very, very clear. First 3 years, I think there was never a week where we haven't chatted for an hour. 7 to 8 every day we would chat. Every day, whether that kept happening for 3 years. Now we've stopped almost that regularity, but you can't go and find a recruiter partner. You got to find out somebody who's adding value, like complementing. Sometimes both of us got into a call with the client, and client got a plethora of services from both sides. And then, client also appreciates, saying that I'm getting, for a one deal, I'm getting a compounded support. So that helps on this. And don't take always your friend or somebody as a business partner, okay? Although Cherry and I are friends, but I'm just saying, for business is different. Relatives,
business
don't
is
touch
business.
relatives. Don't
Business
touch
is
relatives.
business. There's money involved, right? There will be differences of opinion. One partner
Correct.
will want to go in one direction, another partner will want to go in the other direction. And so it's like a marriage. Partnership is like a business partnership, like a marriage. You better get your partner right, otherwise you're in trouble, right? So I think that's an important point to note. Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Great. Thank you, both of you.
Aditya, you want to anything else that you want to check, or shall I just?
Let's just see if anybody has any questions. Otherwise, I have a question which I would like to ask you. So, okay, I'll go with my question. So,
Yeah, sure.
Cherian, one of the biggest dilemmas that I have seen a lot of coaches have, and not just coaches, even mentors and people in this kind of a practice. I remember having a conversation with Nivedita also some time back on these same lines. Is how do we price for our services? How did you go about it? Can you talk to us about your experience?
I think a lot of the pricing depends on how you position yourself. Right, and a lot of how you position yourself depends on what kind of a brand you're going to create for yourself. So I think pricing comes second. Question is, how should customers see you? We got to realize one thing, that this space is extremely crowded. I keep joking all the time, but I say the way we are going, there are more coaches than coaches in the market.
True.
Right? Every second person is a coach. Right? Now, and you imagine the plight of a coachee who has to choose a coach. I pity them, because they get so confused. Who should I choose? Because everybody's a good coach. Everybody's got experience. Everybody's got 15 years, 20, 30 years experience. Everybody's got certification. Somebody's PCC, somebody's ACC, somebody's whatever. So question is, how do the coachee choose you? Or how do the client choose you? I think to a large extent, I look at this as a pyramid, right? I would say 80% of the coaches are at the bottom of the pyramid. right? Who are just starting their coaching journey, who have just gone through the basic credentials and got a few hours of experience, maybe 1 or 2 years of experience. Now, for them to price themselves, it's a much bigger challenge because the customers got so much of a choice. So I think the next part of personal branding is really about choosing the niche you want to work on. And I think here I find that a lot of coaches make a mistake of choosing a very, very narrow niche. Very narrow niche. Somebody would say I'm a personal branding coach. Somebody would say I'm a success coach. Somebody will say I'm a performance coach. If you look at LinkedIn, the kind of can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
No, because
Yes.
somebody put a message saying can't hear. That's why I was
Yeah,
asking.
Rukmini, I think you'll probably have to recheck your connection. Yeah.
So, for instance, there are people who call themselves success coaches, performance coaches, life coach, relationship coach, wellness coach, success coach. There are hundreds of titles of coaches, right? If you look at LinkedIn, you pick up a profile of 100 coaches, you'll find all the possible titles there. How does a potential client or a coachee pick you up from that if you don't stand out from the crowd? So I think to a large extent, I think pricing comes second. You have to choose what is the niche that you want to work with. Right? So when we started, I'll give an example. When I started off 11 years back as a coach with my SME client, SMEs, as you know, don't pay that much. They can't afford to pay. We charge them based on the affordability. So we realized that if we are working with the entrepreneur segment, our pricing has to be different. If you're working with the corporate segment, our pricing can be different. Right? So it's not necessary you have to have the same pricing for everybody. I sometimes say I'm like Robin Hood, right? If I get a nice juicy client, I will charge a nice juicy price, right? If I get a mid-sized client, I will charge a mid-sized price. If I get a solo entrepreneur or a mid-level reaching out to me directly through LinkedIn saying I'm interested in coaching and they're paying from their pocket, I'll charge a different price. So I think to a large extent, pricing should be flexible, but also based in terms of what is the affordability of that client and what are the value that you are providing to a large extent. So I'll give an example how we start off. For instance, with my first client, since I was just starting off as a coach, I charged them 60K per coachee. These were mid-level leaders of an SME for 10 sessions. Now, 1 year later, when I coached the MD of that company, I charged more than double the rates in the same company. By then, they'd already seen the value. Right now, I'm coaching the MD of that company. I'm charging them 3 lakhs for the coaching for that person. Same client, where I charged 60,000 rupees, it went up to 1.2, 1.5. Now it's gone up to 3 lakhs because the value has been established. Same client. Right? They've not come back and said, you charge only that much for the first one. Why are you charging 5 times now? Right? Now I've got 10 years of experience as a coach, which is much different from what I was in the first year of experience as a coach. So I think largely I would say your rates can keep progressively going up year on year. As you get more and more clients under your belt and you're able to show the value that I'm able to make a difference to the person. So talking about pricing, for example, if I were to coach a corporate leader, I would charge a minimum of 3 lakhs. Minimum of 3 lakhs for about 10 sessions. Minimum, anywhere between 3 to 3.5 to 4 lakhs. Right? If I were to coach a SME entrepreneur family business, I would charge about 2.5 lakhs. If I were to coach an individual, I'll charge 1.5 lakhs. I do the same 10 sessions. I follow the same process. I do the same 360. I don't compromise on the process at all, but I have different price points which work for different segments. And I think that works beautifully. So moment your niche is very narrow, then you end up only being able to play in that niche. And you possibly miss out a lot of other opportunities beyond that niche. So I think choosing a niche is very important. I find a lot of coaches choose a very, very narrow niche. I want to work only with mid-level leaders. I want to work only with, women entrepreneurs. I want to work only with students. I only want to do this. I only want to do that. Actually, we start limiting ourselves by saying, I only want to focus on so and so. So my recommendation is always look at multiple niches, not one niche. Today, I'm into business mentoring, I'm into coaching. I either get a client from mentoring, or I get a client from coaching, or I get a client from a corporate, or I get a client from SME. I've never had a challenge of getting clients, despite not having a sales team and despite not selling. Because we've slowly and slowly established ourselves as mentors and coaches in the minds of people. So that personal branding, I think to me, is not something happens in the first year. It takes at least about 3 or 4 years to build up your personal brand, at least 3 or 4 years, maybe more. And it constantly keeps evolving, constantly keeps evolving. Have I answered the question, or are there any questions around this which anybody would like to have? I'll be happy to answer.
That's a great one. There are quite a few takeaways, at least that I have from this one, because uh, the the most powerful statement that you have made is that the pricing depends on how your customers see you, and that's so very true. A customer will not pay if the customer doesn't see you worth what you're quoting. And also the narrow niche that you're talking about, that's also very true. Great. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. And
One
also,
more point. I think the way the customer sees you is depends on how you see yourself.
very true.
So I think personal branding starts with your mind first. You know, we are coaches. We give a lot of gyan. You know, focus on your strengths. Focus on this. Focus on that. We don't practice it ourselves, right?
True.
Lots of coaches have got lots of self-limiting beliefs themselves. You know, oh, can I charge so much per session? Can I charge 10K per session? What if the client does not accept? Right? Should I charge less? So we keep on undervaluing ourselves, right?
True.
And if we undervalue ourselves, the customer will not get the confidence that I'm dealing with somebody who is, you know, good at what they do. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a very nice answer. You can send those clients to me. I will work on their belief systems. I'll work on their subconscious.
Sarita, is it?
And that's Nivedita.
Nivedita.
As a hypnotherapist, we work on the subconscious, so I can work on their subconscious.
No, I've done, in fact, Nivedita, I've done that. Actually, I've had a couple of people who came to me for coaching. No, I'm not joking. I had a couple of people who actually came for coaching to me. And once I had a discussion with them, I realized that they had deep-rooted issues, which I, as a coach, would not be competent enough to solve. Right. So I actually referred them to a healer and a counselor, saying that why don't you go and meet so and so lady, right? She's a very good she's a very good healer. She's a very good counselor. Spend some time with her, and once you feel that you are more ready for coaching, come back to me. And she actually did that. She went and had 3 or 4 sessions. She had 3 or 4 sessions with that person, came back totally different because many of the mind blocks were removed. And then I did a full-fledged coaching engagement after that.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So I think that's what I sit with Aditya and I keep discussing with him about after the therapy is done, then the coaching starts, because everybody is not an adult enough to take your suggestions, right? They have their own, you might be giving them suggestions, but they are, whatever you're guiding them, but they are not even able to receive it because there are deep-rooted beliefs which are like eating up whatever you are suggesting to them. So when both these things come together, strengths, then you can give them a very nice integrated approach. And something which you told also resonated with me in your answer was like to be very flexible, being with different people, you have to charge differently. Maybe it's not the same charges for everyone. That was another thing which I really, really liked a lot. And thank you, Aditya, for asking my question. I keep bugging him with this and it got answered through you. So thank you so much.
Just to add on to further thing, in the north, there is a saying, "Matha deke tikka lagao." So look at the customer, how much he can pay, what value you bring it, charge it accordingly. Your strengths, what you bring it to the table, and the client can afford it, charge him.
See, like when I'm doing a business mentoring, I don't charge less than 1 lakh a month as a retainer for a minimum period of 12 months. right? So that's 12 lakhs of billing for 1 year for one client for 4 sessions a month, right? It's a monthly retainer. But the client spends 12 lakhs, his business goes up by 7, 8, 10 crores, right? So I proved the ROI in 1 year's time. And the same client will continue for one more year, he'll continue for one more year. So I've had clients where we've had like 25, 30 lakhs of billing, SMEs, right?
Hmm.
But instead of charging 1 lakh a month, if I said, look, I'm going to charge 2.5 lakhs a month, they would have said, get lost. Not because they don't want you, but they can't afford you.
Yeah.
So I think you have to look at your client and price it in such a way that it is not easy for them. And they really see that that's an investment that they're putting for their growth. They will take you more seriously. They'll take your work more seriously. If you price it too low, they won't take you seriously. If you do pro bono, they will not take you seriously.
True.
So some of these things we have to take a call as to, as professionals, how do we want to position ourselves? And like I said, the mistake many coaches and other professionals, including mentors, trainers, consultants, I've seen a lot in the last 11 years, is that they tend to underprice themselves because of their own lack of confidence in whether the customer will accept or not. Or in that anxiety that I want to get this client, somehow I must get the client. So I say, never ever show your desperation to the client.
Yeah.
You are the specialist, right? The client better want you and better want to pay for it. I think that's an important point. I walked away from many deals which I felt was not worth my while. And that comes from confidence in your own abilities to make a difference. Right?
Yep.
So I think the initial stages, I see many of you like Jasbir, etc. Just the early stages of the coaching journey. For the first 1 or 2 years, you have to be sort of flexible to an extent that you want to get clients. Right? You want to get your first 5 clients. You want to get your first 6, 7 clients so that you get the experience and you also get the thing. From year 2 onwards, you can jack up your rates, double it straight away. Year 3, you can double it again, no problem. And by the end of year 3 or start of year 4, I think you would have got your pricing model right. It's something that you will figure it out depending on your target audience. Right? Yeah, I hope I've answered that question.
You did. You did. We'll just take a brief moment. I just want to introduce the participants to the speaker at the next for the next
Sure.
event that we're going to have. So next week around the same time, we would have a gentleman by named Ramesh Sridharan. Ramesh Sridharan is a MCC certified coach through ICF. He also has large experience, has led large teams, and he also coaches coaches. So that's an additional one. So that's where we can also see how that segment of the business is as coaches. If we have to explore that, what is it that we can do? All right. So anybody who wishes to get more details around this, I'll be posting it on social media. But if you want more details around it, please get in touch with me, and then we can talk about it. All right. Sorry for the digression. Thank you very much for just bearing with me. All right. So who would like to ask the next question?
Mr. Sherry, and this is Amit here once
Yeah.
again. When the initial parts of initial time of your career, when you're actually just taking off, like a new product being launched in the market, and so the first place to go is your old friends and old colleagues and people like these who you actually want to go and start asking for business and pitching yourself and stuff like that. And in today's time, when you rightly mentioned LinkedIn, every time you open up, almost half the headlines say then you are a motivational speaker or a coach or a trainer or whatever it is. So how do you actually differentiate yourself? And how do you really make yourself more visible today for future, future people who can take your services? How do you do that?
See, I think social media is very important. If you ask me, if I look back at the last 10 years or 11 years of my journey, more than 50% of my business has come from LinkedIn. Right? I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram. I'm not on Twitter. That's my conscious decision not to be there, right? Because that's not my target segment. I'm active on LinkedIn. I keep posting articles. I keep putting short posts. I keep posting videos. So I think it's important to be consistently visible. on social media. No point posting one article, one long article 1 month, and then for the next 2 months going to sleep, right? Your presence will not get felt. Your presence will not get felt. You have to be fairly consistent. I'm not saying do it every day or maybe one post a week, or need not be a large article. But I think that consistent kind of presence, it could be on aspects of lead. I sometimes put something on leadership. Sometimes I'll put something on coaching. Sometimes I'll put something on HR. Sometimes I'll put something on entrepreneurship. And each post is giving my perspective on that particular point, right? And so there's always a debate around it. People are putting their comments and stuff like that. Gradually, you build up a small sort of a tribe of followers and people who start seeing value in what you're sharing, right? And I think as solo entrepreneurs, social media is an extremely important way of trying to stand out from the crowd. It's very difficult to stand out from the crowd, but if you're not visible on social media, chances are you're not visible at all. And don't depend on friends and colleagues beyond a point. You will not get much business from them. That's been my experience. They all say, yeah, we look at it, but nothing really comes out. What really comes out is through collaborations. So Amit, just to give you this thing, one success factor for me, I keep sharing with people who I interact with more often, is that more than 80% of my business comes through collaborations. Collaborations, not necessarily with, it could be collaboration with another coach. It could be collaboration with a mentor. It could be collaboration with a recruitment person. It could be collaboration with a trainer. Anybody who's dealing with your target customer and has got a good relationship with that customer could be a good collaborator for you. So I'll give an example. I got one of my clients through a recruiter. So he was talking to the client saying, why are you not hiring people? And the client said, we're not hiring people because the business is not doing well. So he immediately said, if the business is not doing well, please talk to CK. So he connected me as a business mentor to that client. And I've been working with that client now for more than 2 years. I've done more than 25, maybe close to 30 lakhs of billing now in the last 2 years. Not only have I got a business mentoring client, when I started scaling up the business there, I saw opportunity for hiring. So I passed it on to a recruiter. I saw hiring potential for coaching. I passed it on to coaching. So what happens is that you start helping each other. So instead of being a solo entrepreneur, even if you don't have a team, you can have a team. If you got 5 or 6 or 7 people that you collaborate with, business will come without any problem. If I look at my last, say, 5 or 6 clients I've got, all corporate multinational companies, none of them have come because of me. It is somebody else's client. They have a strong relationship for the last 10, 15 years. That client, they felt they needed coaching and they positioned me as a coach. So I went as a service delivery person, I did not do any BD. I'm not the vendor who's registered with the client. The client looks at me. I have a chemistry meeting with a potential coachee. If that works out, it works out, right? So I would say 80% of my business actually has come through somebody else. So I call that V-commerce. V-commerce, right? Yeah. Because that is what really works. Collaboration. If you have to do any marketing, I would say look for people you can collaborate with. Jasveer, that may be more powerful than looking for a business partner. Right? 5 collaborators could be more powerful than 1 business partner, because those 5 collaborators could get you so much of business opportunity, and you could get some opportunities for them as well. Let's give and take. Let's give and take always, right? And I think these are small tips which I feel has worked well for me. I've been blessed that in the last 11 years, I've never gone looking for business. Business has always come to me. Either somebody reaching out to LinkedIn, right? Or like Aditya reached out to me through LinkedIn, and that's how we connected, or somebody referred Aditya to me, and that's how we connected. 2 months back, there was an interview on personal branding that came through LinkedIn. 1 month back, there was an interview on coaching and mentoring that came through LinkedIn. So with every LinkedIn connect, there's a relationship that gets formed, which at some point of time translates into business. Some relationship of 4 years ago will finally come into business in 2021. So focus more on that. I think to that extent, focus on establishing yourself as a subject matter expert in whatever you do. It could be wellness, it could be life coaching, it could be business coaching, it could be whatever, it could be training, it could be recruitment. How do we position ourselves in the marketplace? Are we seen as cheap, or are we seen as expensive, or are we seen as good value for money? And I think that positioning is very, very important, and it does not happen in 1 year's time. It takes a couple of years to reach that level of comfort.
Yeah, what you say is actually, I resonate with that. There are people who said, that there is a lot of business at bottom of the pyramid. I mean, what typically happens is everyone wants to jack up his price and go for those top-notch customers, and say that I'm working with X, Y, or Z large multinational companies. But there are some people who I know, they said that we want to be at the bottom of the pyramid because that's the kind of people whom we resonate with, and that's a place where we're going to make a lot of money. So maybe that is another way how people look at it, and would probably want to do. But I think it's very important to have a niche for yourself and to be able to kind of grow in that particular area rather than going into different niches.
I agree. So Amit, for instance, we look at 11 years back, we started focusing on the SME and family business segment. 11 years later, we're still focused on the SME and family business. I would say more than 50% of my revenue comes from there. Yeah, because that is the bottom of the pyramid. Those are the guys who really need professional help. And they can't afford a fancy top 4 consulting firm, right? They can afford somebody who's more affordable, but who can add value to them. Right? Corporates is a different ball game, right? They look at their decision-making process is different. They may want to deal with vendors that they've already dealt with. Getting a breakthrough as a new vendor in a large organization could be a challenge. So I've taken the easy way out of working with people who are already vendors. So it takes away that pain. So I still get entry into all the good companies without any effort from my side, except the fact that I'm a subject matter expert. So I'm a good coach. So I think to a large extent, mindset is important, that if you are a coach, you can coach anybody. Why restrict yourself is my point of view. Why restrict yourself? So these are some of the points. So I think collaboration, which I call e-commerce, is important. Personal branding is important. The way you choose your segments and price yourself is important. And the way you use social media and networking. To me, I think these are the 4 broad pillars. 4 broad pillars for a solo entrepreneur to succeed in this marketplace. You have to stand out from the crowd. Otherwise, you're one of the janta. Right? There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of coaches and trainers, and so these are some of the things that have worked for us. I'm just sharing, some tips. I'm sure I've not covered all of it, but
That's
Yeah, but something to add on what Charin has said. Sometimes we go into a place where we are very comfortable. So if I am from an HR background or operations, I'll go for it. In fact, the first client we had was a battery manufacturing company, which both of us didn't have a clue about a battery. So, but we went into for that assignment for one of the first clients, and then it evolved throughout that. And that time we also learned about how a battery is manufactured.
Yep.
That's great. That's great. So I'm conscious of everybody's time. We are 5 minutes over almost. So I want to thank everybody. I wish these conversations are longer, because every conversation we have with the guests that are there on the Coaches Corner, we tend to go a little over the time, and still the conversation doesn't end. So that's that shows the hunger of the participants. I really thank everybody for joining in. And I thank both Cherian and Chari coming over and sharing their experiences with us. Really appreciate it all. If you want to know more details about the next week's session, just reach out to me, or those who are already there on my list. I will start connecting with them and then telling them about those details.
Yeah, and if you have any further questions in terms of things which could not be answered in this short session today, I think just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm like I said, I'm active only on LinkedIn. I don't waste my time on other social media. So that is my professional network and a couple of other networks where I spend my time. That's it. So reach out to me anytime for any further clarifications. Some of my videos are there on my YouTube, which I've started. And one last point, Aditya, I could mention
Sure.
is that I must mention that 2020 again has been a year of reinvention. Thanks to Corona, right? Since March 2020 till now, April 2021, I've not had a single physical client meeting. I've not had a single physical coaching session or a mentoring session. Everything has happened virtually. So I think, technology has made it so easy now to coach a client in Hyderabad or Bombay or Dubai or mentor a client in the north of Karnataka. No longer one needs to travel, no longer one needs to go physically. All those myths have been broken, that only a physical meeting works, only a physical session works. I've had chemistry meetings closed off on Zoom. I've had 10 sessions on Zoom. I've finished coaching engagements without meeting my coachee physically even once. All this happened in 2020.
Yeah.
So I think that's another success factor, that we should not be too set in our ways.
Correct.
Keep evolving as the situation keeps changing. Right now, I've got so comfortable with work from home that I don't want to go to a client at home. So I'm happy. My bedroom has become my office, right? So I'm perfectly fine with it as long as I
just
get my
one question. If I have the time for a minute, is it possible?
time is up to Aditya. I'm okay with time.
Yeah.
He's
So
got
one
time.
question, when you just mentioned about this things going online, does it impact the pricing that you have to do? If you were to do it offline or online, does it matter?
Not at all.
Not at all.
See, if I'm doing a 3-hour session, I'm doing a 3-hour session. It's not diluted because it's online, right? I know the value of my 3-hour session. I will not compromise even 10% of my pricing. Yeah. So I think a lot of it comes from our own self-confidence in ourselves, right? On business mentoring, what used to happen, I used to go there every week, spend time with the client and the team, right? So there was a very large physical component of meeting, calling people, they making presentations. Even that we were able to convert to online. And even they've got very comfortable now with online, right? So one person could be sitting in Hyderabad, one in Bangalore. The main team could be sitting in their office in Bangalore, and we are able to do a nice 4-5 hour session completely online and charge the same rates. You're still giving the same value, so why charge less?
Yeah, true. I quite resonate with what you're saying, Cherian, because in fact I have increased my prices last year. So it's all about, I mean, as he rightly said, mindset is so important. It all depends on what you think of yourself.
So I think price yourself slightly higher than what you actually want, never lower than what you want, because customers would sometimes want to get a feel that they got something out of you, right? So you give them that feeling that they have won also, right? Make it a win-win, right? So you also get what you want, they also get what they want, and then both sides are happy, right? Indians are used to a discount culture, but don't give too much discount, then again you're discounting your brand.
Okay.
Right? So just price it right. I think that's important.
Great. So thank you.
Any other questions? I'm happy to take. Otherwise, you can reach out to me offline. That's no problem.
Yeah. All right. So
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks for joining on a Saturday. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aditya.